Welcome, mere mortalites, to the Mere Mortals in Motion. I'm your host here, Kyron. I'm taking over from Juan for today's episode, a first-time appearance for me on the show. So if you have only been ever jumping in and listening to the Mere Mortals in Motion, I'm Juan's co-host on the Mere Mortals podcast, on the conversations. We do the book reviews together. I've got a couple of separate ones related to AI and art. And today I'm going to be going through a bit of a one-arm handstand, not tutorial, not guide, critique of myself using some AI as well. So what I've got in store for you today is a selection of videos from my training of about a month ago. It was a decent day, but not a fantastic day either. I would say it was very middle of the range ballpark in terms of what we're going to see in terms of the actual videos. And we've got the AI critique that Juan very kindly helped to ask to, I believe it was GPT, one of the models. I'm not sure he actually tells me exactly which one it was. And he asked it for feedback on expert level on one of the videos that I'll show through in a second now. So we might as well just jump in and let's have a look-see at it. So this is me at the Bulimba Riverside Park. And essentially what I am trying to do is do a one-arm handstand and do it on both arms. So I will be switching between left and right on all of these in various different variations. So I'm on the blocks all this time. That was a one-arm straddle on the left side with my arm in a straight arm position. And I typically will do a set of that, trying to just get that good. Then I'll jump onto the right side and do the exact same thing, trying to hold for as long as possible at the moment. Typically, I'm getting between 5 to 15 seconds. So if I get 10 seconds, double digits, then I consider that a pretty good set. And I won't particularly analyze these ones too much. And you can see the analysis on the left-hand side of the screen here of what AI actually thinks. So it was actually for this video here, which was me in the diamond position, straight arm, that it started giving some critiques and feedbacks, and we're just going to go through what it actually said and whether I agreed with it, not agreed with it or not, and perhaps even pause at any point of the video. That was actually a really good left one just there for the first 5 seconds. Typically with the left, I'm right-armed, right-handed, so I'm just much stronger with that. So typically I will get kind of like an extra 40% roughly of time holds and probably technique and everything on the right arm as compared to the left in general. That left row was looking pretty good. And you can see just in general, I think I'm doing the okay things of straight spine, locking in the shoulder, trying to keep the arm outstretched and without going too crazy with it in terms of the adjustments and variations. So here's what the AI was having to say. That is a solid foundation. You clearly have the strength in the proprioception, aka the spatial awareness, to handle advanced variations like the diamond lotus shape. However, moving from strong to expert usually involves cleaning up the leaks in your kinetic chain. Here is a deep dive into your footage form based on the footage, The banana versus the hollow body. The banana, the eternal enemy of every handstander. That's actually not true. It doesn't really matter if you've got a banana back or not, but kind of looks a little bit nicer when you're in the straight. So it was saying, I had a noticeable arch in my lower back, anterior pelvic tilt. While this is common when focusing on leg variations, it indicates a leak in core tension. So the fix, work on your posterior pelvic tilt. Imagine tucking your tailbone toward your heels and pulling your belly button toward your spine. Expert tip, think about knitting your ribs down. If your ribs are flared out, your spine isn't stacked, and your shoulders have to work twice as hard to stabilize the offset in weight. Now, there's a couple of different videos here. I'm getting now onto a very similar position, straddle, but with a more of a fingertip support with my arm rather than the outstretched straight. I find that the easiest because with that little bend in the elbow, it just gives me it feels like a little bit of wiggle room. It's almost like I'm kind of just like moving the air and adjusting like that. I also find, I think like this is probably the best looking position I've got. The the legs are straight, the right leg is dipping as much as it roughly should be. I sometimes have a tendency to kind of like tilt the hips and then push out rather than really coming up, holding that, and then just holding that steady position. So this is my favorite position, and this is where you could probably see where I was talking about with the banana back and the pelvic tilt, which is my butt rotating over a little bit more towards my head, so coming towards the actual screen. And you'll notice just on all of these videos that my form on the left hand side is much worse than on the right hand side. So that's the main, I guess, problem that you're really going to be seeing with what's happening with me. When we get into the one arm shape shifting as well, so sorry, I probably jumped too forward there. Well, let's continue with what it was talking about with the shoulder opening and elevation. So your shoulder strength is high, but the shoulder angle isn't quite fully open. You're balancing slightly behind the shoulders rather than directly over them. The observation, you're pushing well, protraction, but you could use more elevation, pushing the floor away to hide your ears from your shoulders. And I guess this is where, if I just pause the video here, a lot of people will say you want that distance between the neck and the shoulder pushing up. So I've got a bit of a gap here when I'm looking up. Some people say you should really be like almost having your chin tucking onto your shoulder. I find at the moment, and looking right directly kind of into your palm here, so I guess you'd be seeing it, you'd be looking directly into your knuckles. I typically am looking out over here. Is that a form issue? Will I gradually over time, as I get better, have my vision move over to here? I'm not so sure. One of the reasons I've heard that people will try to focus more on their knuckles here is that if they're circus athletes, they're going to be much higher up off the ground because they'll be on canes, so like on blocks here, but you know, at the height of where my feet are. And if you're doing that, the ground is going to be much more further away. I guess having a visual stacked point of just one point to look at, and especially if you're rotating as well, which a lot of the really advanced people do, then having that fixed point to looking at your hand, where you're always going to be looking at your hand, even if it's rotating. I'm wondering if that's why they do that instead of looking at just off to the side of the ground. I'm never going to be a circus athlete. I actually hate being up at heights like that because I just feel the chances and risks of injury is much more large, and I have seen really advanced people hurt themselves and fall off from weird positions at that height. So I'm not particularly interested in that, nor one of the reasons I got into handstands was so that I could record like this, go to a random park anywhere in the world and train without having to need all of the gear and just some blocks, or not even blocks, just my hands to use on the ground. So that's one of the things perhaps that is holding me back, and maybe that's something that'll change over time. I'm not particularly looking to fix that right at this moment because I feel like I'm trying to work a little bit more on the hips and where my body is in space there. But that's just one thing to think about. So it's saying the drill, perform handstand shrugs against a wall. Focus on moving only the shoulder girdle up and down while keeping your arms locked. This will help you find that locked in stack. I have done that sort of stuff in the past, but it's, not particularly something I continually go back to. So yeah, one arm weight shifting. Your attempt at the one arm shift is ambitious. Currently you are shifting your entire hip package, my hip package, I love it, I like that, to compensate for the weight change. The critique, when you lift a hand, the opposite hip drops or flares out to find a new center of gravity. So I wonder if we can see that in this video here, where as soon as the hand lifts off, the hip drops. You saw it a little bit there, so I think that's a relatively valid critique, and one that is something that I probably do a little bit too often, I guess. So that one I definitely will agree with, that my as soon as I move the weight, it just starts dropping. So that one is definitely true. My hip package, need to work on that. So true one arm transition should be nearly invisible. You want to shift your weight onto the index finger knuckle of the stabilizing hand before the other hand even leaves the ground. Action. Practice fingertip drills. Shift weight to one side and slowly go from 5 fingers to 3 to 1 on the secondary hand. This builds the micro stabilization needed for the clean one-arm handstand. And then it starts talking about entry and compression. Your entry is control, but if you want to reach that elite aesthetic, focus on the press handstand mechanics. And so this is the bit where I started to actually argue, I guess, against what it's talking about here, because there is nothing wrong with my entry. Like jumping up into the entry like that, I don't need to be doing a handstand press every time I want to be working on the one arms. In fact, that would be exceedingly stupid. So working on my pancake flexibility, compression strength, all of that, kind of unnecessary for what this video is about, which is about working on the one arm handstand. So I definitely was saying like, that one I'm not so sure about. I also argued against like the tucking of the tailbone, so kill the banana back, which is what it was saying, because the video that I gave it, which was the tuck one right at the start, and I'll jump back to the start here so we can roughly see where I was talking about. So roughly right around here. So this was the video that it got. I really don't see how it could notice how much of a banana back or not I don't have. So here you can definitely see my right leg, so the one to the leftmost side of your screen, needs to drop down. My hips are not, they should be in line with where my shoulders are. So my shoulders are at kind of this level here, but my hips are at this level. So I definitely need to get my hip package down on the leading foot, or the leading leg, if you will. So the leg that's closest to the ground. That is something I definitely need to work on. The tuck tailbone, like just looking at it from this position, I'm kind of going like, that's certainly not the number one thing that needs working on. So I kind of disagree with that. Open the shoulders, so push the floor away harder. Yes, every kind of like good handstander says that's the number one tip. Just push harder. You just need to really stack. And you think you're locked in here, but you're locked in even more if you're pushing even harder up. And then gripping with the claws, engage the fingertips more aggressively to counter the overbalance. This one I'm not so sure about as well, because I guess typically I do land more on my feet or to the side like that. So that's probably something I do need to look more into, like, or maybe even take some stats of, all right, I'm falling more onto my feet, or am I falling more to the side, or am I falling more to my backside, aka like overbalancing. Saying your balance is very calm, which is the hardest part to teach. Now it's just about refining the architecture. So even with ones like this, like the one we're watching right now, you'll sometimes see I get some rotation happening. That one is a tiny little bit, but landing more on my feet. And yeah, it's hard, because in these videos, as I was watching, I was like, this one, for example, I'm probably overcompensating. I'm pulling the left leg down too hard. It then naturally rose into roughly the right position. And then I just started getting weak. Honestly, that one there was probably just straight up shoulder strength weakness of why I failed that. So I did argue against it a little bit, and one was saying that was the feedback. I asked it to be expert level, and I said it's not wrong, but it's not right either. There's no possible way to see if I have a banana tilt from that angle, so I guess it's just saying the common stuff, and it missed the real obvious one. I'm not pulling down with my leg enough, which is and I should have said pulling down with my leading leg. This position here, I feel that looks good. Like, that's a good looking position. Managed to keep it up for a bit. And then the just variations of balance let me down. But you can see, like, that position looks so much more better than this left one here. Even now, like, the spine's got a little bit of a weird tilt. Like, it's kind of curved. It's not that, especially the lower portion back of the spine, it's not that rock solid line like you'll see on the right hand side. So I said I gave it a 6 out of 10. All things that are useful, but don't apply to the nitty gritty of what I'm doing in this particular video. And one got it to give me some response back. So it said, fair call. That was a safe critique. Let's get surgical. If you're looking for world level detail, we need to stop talking about staying up and start talking about internal tension and weight distribution. You're right about the banana comment. From a head on diagonal low angle, it's hard to see the lumbar spine clearly. So if I'd taken video from the side, I felt like that critique could have been more applicable. But yeah, just for this, not as much. In this video here, you can see I've got my feet apart. I don't know why, but for some reason, sometimes even just having it that teensy little bit apart makes me seem to balance more than touching them. It makes no sense, but yeah, we'll get into that. So, however, your rib flare and shoulder to ear distance are dead giveaways that your stack isn't locked. Here's the harsher world level breakdown. All right, let's go. Let's get into it. So the leg pull, the compression grab. You mentioned you aren't pulling your leg down enough. You are likely referring to active counterbalance in your diamond/stag. And it would have been good to actually give it all of these videos, because that would have given it a bit more of a full story, I guess. And jumping on to what it says, so like the consequence, so the world level detail, in a high level 7 or tuck variation, your legs shouldn't just hang. You need active hip flexion, pulling the knees, feet toward the face. The consequence, because you aren't pulling that lead leg down, your center of mass is drifting towards your back, overbalancing. To stay up, you're forced into a planche compensation, aka like coming over the shoulders and leaning forward past your knuckles to keep you from falling. World class balancer keeps the shoulders dead still while the hips and legs do the work. That's kind of true and kind of not. Like, really, a world class balancer, they're just balancing with their fingers, and like everything else, they're just holding still. So they're not really making any adjustments from their legs and hips. If anything, it'll just be the fingers, maybe working its way up to the elbow and the shoulder. But the really good ones, they just stay boom, still, boy. Scapular leak and external rotation. Watch your shoulders at the 8-second mark. You have the strength, but you lack the scapular wrap. The critique, your elbows are slightly soft, not bone locked. This is probably true. I probably do keep a little bit of a bend in my elbow at this stage. And at this stage of the video, like what we're watching now is just going to be absolute trash, because for my training, typically for each position, I'll do about 20 minutes of work. So straight arm in a straddle for 20 minutes, straight arm in a diamond for 20 minutes, then moving on to the kind of fingertip, 20 minutes of straddle, 20 minutes in the diamond. And now I'm getting into like the arm raised and straddle, and then arm raised and diamond right after this. And I've found that I think about an hour and 20 minutes of really solid work is about as much as I can usually manage. And then going beyond that is when it starts to get real dicey, and I'm essentially just got no strength left. So I would like to get that up to 2 hours at some stage, but at the moment I think I'm closer to an hour and 20 minutes. And so I should probably either just work on some endurance or just something completely different if I want to fill up more time. I usually do about 3 hours of workouts a day with an hour of stretching. So we'll keep playing the video, just watching this last bit. So this means your weight is being held by your triceps and delts rather than being stacked. And this is true. The fix, you need to externally rotate the humerus. Think about tearing the floor apart with your hands while simultaneously pushing into maximum scapular elevation. Right now, you're sitting in your shoulder joints rather than pushing out of them. The heel to knuckle oscillation. Look at your fingers in the video. They're fluttering or clawing aggressively. At the elite level, the fingers shouldn't move that much. If the fingers are working that hard, it means your weight distribution is constantly falling towards your heels and you're panicking to pull it back. I wonder if I do it in this one. You wouldn't be able to see because the fingers are the opposite direction. But the correction, you need to shift your weight 2 millimeters further. I like how specific it is there. 2 millimeters back towards the opposite side. So let's watch this. Watch the actual video, perhaps one more time. And towards the metacarpal phalangeal joints, you should be balancing on the sweet spot where your knuckles and the top of your palm meet. If you find that spot, and your fingers can stay quiet and ready rather than constantly rescuing the balance. So I don't know if my fingers really are like fluttering and clawing there. See, this is where it's just like, I don't know if it's really talking about that or it really knows. And the one arm transition, the hip drop, when you attempt to shift weight to one hand around 13 seconds, your opposite hip collapses instantly. You are shifting your chest to the side to find the one arm, but you aren't shifting your pelvis. The rule, the pelvis must move over the stabilizing hand. So you feel this position, yeah, once again, like there is a way to overanalyze everything. That's 100% a thing that can be done. So you're lifting the hand and then trying to find the balance of one arm, world-class one-arm handstand. The secondary hand becomes weightless while the body is still in a perfect I frame. You have to kick or jerk to get the hand. Okay. The verdict, you have okay amateur balance. To hit expert word level, you need to stop using your shoulders to fix your legs' mistakes. Probably in general, I think that's true. And that the main problem I'm having at the moment is just where my hips are and my legs, and not keeping them as rock steady as perhaps I should be in their position, and then just pushing with the shoulder strength, and then just honestly just more shoulder strength in general, just being able to push harder and keeping up in that elevated position. I feel I'm getting to the point now where my traps and my shoulders are staying roughly where they need to be, and it's just about pushing harder and working harder. So we'll probably leave it there. And I was saying that like that was a more accurate representation. The second go through felt like better advice, an 8 or 9 out of 10 compared to a 6 out of 10 previously. So that's a little insight into my handstands there. I hope you took something from this, if perhaps you're working on your handstands as well. And would love to know how other people train, what you thought of the AI critique, and whether it's worthwhile using it as perhaps a potential coach. You could just get a normal coach, I guess, a normal one-arm handstand coach, as if that's a normal thing, and get them. But I kind of like these variations of testing out with new technology, and honestly just dissecting myself. I've never been great with listening to the advices of coaches. It's them giving me a particular training program which I just something I dislike maybe a little bit, but I also like creating my own. So it's probably a combo of both. So for those who are really interested in one-arm handstands, this has been a little bit of a dissection here, rather than just my normal ones of me showing the training footage and just putting some music over the top of it. And yeah, I think that's it for today. I really hope you're having a fantastic day wherever you are in the world. Sorry, Juan, for taking over your channel and doing a long-ass video here, but it was fun to do so. And ciao for now. Kyron out.